Welcome to Left and Correct, everyone. Adrian has finally written us a theme song. So if you're ready, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Here is a story about a boy named Zach. He was walking down the street. He met up with his fine lady friend. Her name was Adrian. And they said, fuck you when they talk about politics. And then they had an idea. Let's get together with the friend Jesus. And that's where it began. They called it Left and Correct. One of them is correct on the left and correct. What they're going to talk about next.
Yay! Yes. Oh man, 31 episodes in and we got a theme song. Finally a theme song. I love it.
Rooted in American bluegrass.
You have to be. If you're going to talk about America, you have to have that folk content, you know?
I imagine the chorus being like a lot of harmonies, you know, like left and correct.
Yeah, I love it. I love that idea. I love the story of us walking to the gym.
I was thinking about the gym today because we haven't been there in forever.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I shaved my beard the other day and immediately thought, wow, stopping going to the gym was a huge mistake because my neck has grown threefold.
Oh, no.
I mean, maybe it was always like this, but I feel like the beard or the gym was helping it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm falling apart completely physically. But
well,
I guess
everything feels like it's falling apart. Ourselves, the country.
You still look good. Jesus still looks good.
I'm just, wearing pajamas all day. And then I put on real clothes the other day and I was horrified. I was like, oh no, what have I done? Just eating cheese all day.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of eating cheese, Minnesota passed a bunch of police reform bills, right?
Yeah.
Cheese comes from Minnesota?
Wisconsin?
Oh yeah, you're right. Close.
Yeah, that's America. I'm very I don't. I'm like, wait, Wisconsin, like Minnesota was. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I know geography, but just even thinking like, right, okay, Minnesota is in, is there, Minneapolis. But at any rate, yeah, lots of reforms are happening or proposals for reforms, which is amazing because here we go. Like 2 weeks ago, like in the span of this short amount of time, I think the New York State just Senate repealed 50A, which means
the secret police officer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have that going on. We have people in Congress and the Senate proposing bills, bipartisan in that regard. So it's like, let's hold them all to it.
Yeah.
And in Minnesota, we have things taking place, which is incredible, which, for all the shit that I used to get when people would be like, protests don't work, Adrian. You're wrong. Look what happened. Like this, the power of the people coming together can move the needle forward.
I think so. I mean, I think civil unrest is absolutely the only thing. But I also have to say that it is sad because a lot of the proposals are minimal and surface. I mean, like, it's definitely good that something's happening and that some people are proposing stuff. But like banning chokeholds, like chokeholds were already banned apparently in New York City.
Well, it's for it was, but I know something has.
They just don't follow the rules. I mean,
and everything, but it's like but this is like what these police unions and stuff have been able to do is like be very, very specific about what constitutes a chokehold versus some other kind of excessive force.
So putting a knee on someone's neck is not a
chokehold. But like, yeah, it is. What the hell? You're restricting someone's airflow, or like windpipe versus artery, like those kind of like specifics really allow cops to get away with murder, literally. And people have had it, and so
what kind of sick person spends their time fighting for this kind of minutia?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
it really goes to show you like the mindset of a lot, but it's not even just like someone who would do that. or even the lawyers hired to defend that, the people who support it, because I mean, my Facebook, my, people I know are all very supportive of all of these laws and change, and they're out there on the streets. But I know, even though I may not see it, I know that there's tons of Blue Lives Matter. This isn't fair. The blah blah blah. I'm like, well, it's so hard, and like all that. I don't understand. We can't have anarchy. Like that stuff is happening too. I'm not blind to that. But like but it's, that's what white supremacy really is at its root. It's just a whole system of people who support even the most inhumane actions.
It's wild. Did you see the police union press conference for New York City that just happened?
I thought what that gentleman having a complete hissy fit. He's like, we're not murderers. We're like, when tough. Can't swear because your mom will be upset.
Can't swear, although you already swore once. I'm keeping track. I always keep track.
That's my swear jar. Oh my God. Okay. How about we have a swear jar, and the money we raise, we donate to, I don't know, something like ACLU, Black Lives Matter.
Okay, yeah, that's really useful. But yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous the way that those people get up there and they literally just spout lies,
right,
saying that they're being oppressed. They didn't. I listened to about 5-10 minutes of it. I couldn't take listening. And he said the mayor threw us under the bus. The prosecutors threw us under the bus for prosecuting you for murdering and assaulting people.
Right. And like, but what you're seeing here, and like, and also clips, I don't know if you've seen them of like, and they're all like, the thing is, they're all middle-aged white men.
Yeah.
Like, freaking out at, maybe less than a dozen protesters on the street in Long Island, or like in front of a grocery store, or like wherever it is. But it's like what we're seeing is like the white male patriarchal rule, being shaken to its core, and like it's like a sandcastle that they've been standing on this whole time, and it's like falling out. And like Trump was their last victor, their last hope, and like he's a madman. And so it's like you see them freaking out, and that's what.
Well, I mean, they've got Biden to come in and protect him, as I'm sure he will.
It's not. No, Trump is literally like, beat him up. I like you. Like.
And Biden just does it with a wink.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, you're being bad, cops.
He's just got tears coming out of his eyes because he's thinking about
his body is decaying in front of us.
Oh no.
He has to use those fake tears just to keep his eyes dry, not wet. But yeah, it's wild. It continues. The marching continues. I think there'll be minor changes, but there's this big debate that people are talking about, the defund police versus reform police. And what does defund police actually mean?
It's well, from my understanding, it is reform the police, but it's got that, shocking slogan, as activists are wont to do, to like get at you and like start the conversation. Then you have the conversation and you're like, oh yeah, I'm for that. Like that, this is all realistic, normal proposals. However, people don't do the research, they don't have the conversations, and it just becomes this trap where it's like, if you say yes, you're considered some kind of
anarchist,
lunatic. If you say no, it's like you are a fascist. And it's like it's I don't, but yet everyone who is paying attention and like on Twitter all the time, they're like, no, that makes perfect sense. It's just a bad slogan. It's just a bad slogan, but I didn't create the slogan, so who am I to say? So it is, I don't know,
it's crazy to me because, looking at local municipal budgets, not something I've ever really done in my pastime, and to learn that the majority of cities, that the police budget is like this, and then the budget for everything else is like this.
Yeah.
I did not assume that. I always thought they were all kind of the same.
Oh no, oh
you
no.
know?
I mean, it's like it all goes back to like why is it that like teachers and communities need to buy art supplies and pencils and stuff for their students. Meanwhile, like in my hometown, the police have a tank. Why? We don't need a tank. It's Melrose, Massachusetts. That I can't imagine any. It's like literally. I've never watched Gilmore Girls, but it's like that kind of a town where it's just like there's no reason for a friggin' tank, and they've used it before too, just like for like
Well, that's insane, and that came courtesy of our boy Obama.
but he was demilitarizing it, and it's
No, he was for militarizing the police. That's what he did, and that's interesting because that's sort of a different issue than defunding, which defunding could help demilitarize, but the concept of militarizing them in the first place is insane because it's a scheme that came up from the Pentagon, essentially for a way for them to sell surplus supplies.
And that's like a post 9/11, we need to protect ourselves nonsense. But like getting that out of there clears up a lot of money. A lot.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, it would. I mean, absolutely. I mean,
but even so much, like in terms of talking about like the police have had to take on more than what It's not just someone broke into my house and the detective comes. It's like someone's having a mental health crisis, and you've got and then you've got like that kind of situation, and then someone gets killed because they pick up a coat hanger and I thought it was a gun, I feared for my life. It's like those kind of situations happen all the time.
Well, let's talk about this as an issue because, and trust me, I really hate police and I hate policing, but there is a side of the discussion on the structure of policing that I guess would be a how can we help the cops out thing. And I've always thought about that too, since they've been murdering people. And it seems to me it'd be pretty easy to do exactly what you said, is that they should not be the catch-all for every single issue that exists in society because they're not trained or able to handle it. I mean, the specific issue you talked about, someone mental health crisis, the only thing they basically know how to do is shoot people or arrest people. That's like all they know how to do.
But even then, even like restructuring funding in terms, and then we create another agency of mental health workers, that still doesn't solve the systemic racism. How do we make sure that those people who aren't police officers but then answer the call, like because the way our system is set up now, how they'll answer like a 20-year-old woman in distress will be white woman in distress will be much different than a 50-year-old black man.
Yeah.
Pretty much ending up with the man being killed, so we can't just assume that just because someone like the cops are not going to handle something that racism is solved, because it's not. And it's about how do we
100%. And I think that comes into I wish I'd done better research for this episode. As usual, I didn't, but someone was talking about how some city had done a complete defunding of the police before.
Camden defunded the police, like one of the departments, and then everyone was let go and they had to reapply, which I think is wonderful, because then you can actually really look through it and go like, oh, you have 20 violations, you've been fired somewhere else before, like all those things. And a lot of that oversight is not being done because they don't want to, they're all protected, it's a boys club, like whatever the hell it is.
Exactly. So like that would be a way to eliminate the structural racism, would be to fire all police. And
a lot of these cities, they have these really powerful police unions that have signed a contract of collective bargaining and stuff. So to be like, if I've signed this contract and I'm following these rules, I haven't committed any, I know, I haven't had any citations, I haven't killed anyone, and now you're going to fire me and I have to, like, those are the kind of conversations that will happen. And it's,
well, a lot of people say that there should be no police union. That's the one group that shouldn't be able to unionize. And I mean, from everything I've seen, I kind of agree. I mean, I think there should be like 90% unions in this country, and I hate that there isn't. But
there's a difference between being like a union force for steal, or for even restaurant workers, like, or retail workers, that kind of thing. Whereas like with the police union, like the biggest thing is like, you'll protect us if we kill somebody, right? And you can like, there's been recent data of the correlation of like a unionized police force results in more deaths. It's really terrifying, and like it's been going on for forever. And
But let's go back to the discussion of how to potentially help them. Like Bernie Sanders put forward an idea to pay them a very high salary. And I mean, as much as that seems gross to reward murderers, it would be potentially a way to prevent murderers from being in there, because a factor in being a police or a security person is that the salaries can often be low, not always.
well, but also with salaries, it's like you get a better crop of people applying, and like,
Exactly.
or there is more accountability, because any city or municipality or whatever, or state, is not going to be giving someone X amount of money if they have all of these grievances, unnecessary force, like all these kind of, and like they have people on the ground being like, this dude's a racist, and then be like, oh, here's your check of 60K. Like, no, that's, no one will tolerate that.
Well,
So
if people,
but it all goes back to, if everybody was paid well, everyone would, be doing their job better.
well, yeah, I mean, if you were someone who could just like go home at the end of the day and actually enjoy your life from being in such a horrible job, then the next day you come to work, you might be less stressed, less prone to like fly off the handle and be nasty. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that that would actually solve things. I think making them work
Like,
less would be a big deal too, you know?
but also this culture of toxic masculinity, and also this macho, gun obsessed culture that we're all in, where like these people who join the police force, like they're like indoctrinated into this, like, you're going to war and be prepared to use your weapon, and like that kind of mindset, can
I
like,
mean, I don't know why we aren't for complete disarmament of the police.
it's because we have too many guns in this country. That's the thing. Like, there are, because you can't have one conversation about that without saying like, well, what about the citizens?
Well, why couldn't you do this? Why couldn't they have a big gun locker at the station that they're not allowed to carry around? But when,
Shit
when
goes
when
down.
the yeah, when the Bunga Dungas who worship the star god decide to have a standoff, in Wacko or wherever, then they go and they get their guns just for that. You know what I mean? Like situational gunness.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
I mean, that would cut down on murders a lot if they just didn't have guns.
Right, because most circumstances don't even need that, and it always just gets escalated to that.
I mean, I love guns. I think guns are great. But every time I've been around a gun, I've felt uncomfortable, Like, I mean, the last time I was 2 Christmases ago, I went to go get a haircut in Michigan it was at Christmas, and this guy walks into the hair cutter with a gun on his hip. And this is not even that rural of a town.
Well,
And I said out loud, I go, "What are you doing?" Because it just shocked me.
you've been in New York too long.
I've been in New York I'm such a soft, lily-livered liberal.
Oh,
But
boy.
it came out of my mouth, and he was like, "What? I'm carrying my gun for," and I was like, "For what?" And he was like, "For protection." And I was like, "Okay," because I didn't want to get into it. But I was just like,
Yeah, like everyone is living in fear, particularly white. I imagine this person was a white man.
white person, white male, and like 99.9% white town.
Yeah. So it's like, well, what are you in fear of? Who are you like?
I mean, violent crime in that town, when I looked at the statistics, is like 2 people ever have been harmed. Like, it's like, what's gonna happen?
Right.
Like, the biggest crime in that town is like not paying your bills.
Oh, but I'm sure. But like again, I'm sure domestic violence is probably.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
And that too, also like in terms of, cops have a higher rate of domestic violence.
Oh, I've seen those memes like crazy. It's supposed to
Yeah.
like 40% of them beat their wives or their significant other.
But even still, in terms of like what will happen, it's like women. I would don't. There's too many reports of women who have been raped and like their rape reports not being filed properly, being dismissed, the whole thing of like, what were you wearing? Are you sure that happened? Like all of that nonsense. And then even still, just like being a woman on the street, being harassed, and then you're like, it's a cop, and like all that. It's like, it's the whole. Again, I liken it to like the patriarchal sort of mindset that is killing us all, literally.
Well, you know what interactions have you had with cops? Because I can think of I've only had 3 in my entire life.
Let's see. I mean, that's non-protesting.
I mean, yeah, non-protest related. Also, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
Oh no, I mean, I've never, let's see. Oh, I remember one of my first apartments. I lived on 111th between Adam Clayton and Lenox. And you hear this banging on the door, and my roommate answers the door, and she was black. And the cops are like, "We want to speak to the white people." And she just flips out and like slams the door, and she's like, "What the fuck is this shit?" So money. But and then just like, "Adrian, that's for you." And I'm like, "What?" And then like I opened the door and I'm like, "I'm sorry, what's going on?" And then there was these 2 police officers, and they have this picture of a woman and be like, "Do you know this woman?" I'm like, "No." Or like, "Is this your sister?" or something like that. Like, and I laughed because it was like, I don't have siblings, and I'm like, "No." And then they're like, "What's so funny?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, this is just so odd." And then meanwhile, my roommate's in the back, like being like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah," rightfully so, because how do you answer the door and say that? Just be like, "Excuse me, we're doing an investigation. We're looking for someone who," like that's how you answer the friggin' door if you're banging on it, And so, and I was like, "No, I don't know her. Get out of here." Bang. So that was, I forgot about that till just now. That was, and then like typical, like New Year's Eve, where it's like, "Ma'am, you gotta cross the street" type stuff, where I'm just like, "Don't call me ma'am. I don't call you a pig, do I?"
But so you basically had very minor interactions with them.
Yeah, because
which was my experience too, and I was thinking a lot about that. We're white, so
yeah, but like
probably
don't get it twisted. I know what they're capable of, and I know what they do.
Yeah.
And, I've always known that, but then when you actually see it, and particularly like in my first protests, well, the one of the first protests I went to where craziness went down was the 2004 Republican convention.
Yeah.
I was there during the day. I left before. This was all under Bloomberg too. Like Bloomberg had there were like people undercover in these activist groups who had infiltrated themselves. So then when it became nighttime, all these protesters were arrested and thrown in the tombs without any kind of due process. And so I missed that, but I remember hearing about that later. But first time I ever saw it was just it was it was like an Occupy Wall Street protest, and we were all on the sidewalk, and then and the cops are on the street. They'll walk with you. All of a sudden they just reach in and pull someone out for no reason,
Yep.
and then everyone, and they start beating this person, and then there's the whole crowd around them being like, "Shame," and it was wild to actually see it, that moment of oh, this is a protest, to oh, this is what they do. Oh, okay. So it's wild. But I have never had any I've never had any police altercations or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, me either. I've always been able to get out of any problem I've had. I'd love to think it's because I'm clever, but it's probably just because of how I look.
Right. Right.
I mean, very bizarre thing happened when I was very young, 15, 4th of July. I'm in my hometown of Stevensville, small Michigan town, and my friend Candace and I had done some smoking of the pot. And
drugs.
Yeah, and the town had a little festival called Stevensville Days. And so the town is on 2 levels. There's the top of the hill and the bottom of the hill. And the bottom of the hill is this little mall type thing. So we pull in there to park, and there's a Pizza Hut. We were going to walk past the Pizza Hut, and up the hill to the festival, right? And the pizza employees are in the parking lot and they're playing with sparklers. And we're very stoned and we're like, this is so fun. You know, how exciting. So they give us sparklers and we're just like playing with them and like throwing them in the air. And like we didn't notice that like the pizza employees had like disappeared. And all of a sudden I hear this voice that's like, hey, you, like stop or something like that. And I don't know why I said this, but I go, Candace, run. So we run like 10 feet to the car, and she had a bag of weed in her pocket. I was like, throw it, throw it. So she throws it into this like grassy area. That's probably why I said run. I don't know how I knew it was cops though, because I didn't see them. And they catch up to us. They're like, why were you running? And I go, I don't know. And they're like, what is happening? Why are you running? And I was like, I don't know what's happening. We were playing with sparklers, and they're like, did you set the bushes on fire? And I was like, what? And I go, Pizza Hut did it. They were like, what? And I was like, Pizza Hut did it. They gave us the sparklers. They gave them to us. And I mean, to be honest, I don't fully remember this whole interaction because I was quite stoned, but I convinced him to go in and talk to the Pizza Hut people. And one moment I do remember is walking just up to the host counter, and one of the women who had given us sparklers just pretending she didn't know us and going like, oh, welcome to Pizza Hut, me and this cop. And I was like, it was her. They did it. They gave us the sparklers. So I gave him my license, and I was like, you know, because they had no proof that we caught fire, and we actually didn't. And you know, but we got out of it easy. You know what I mean? Like they could have easily just said, oh, you people with sparklers, you're the ones who started a fire in the front. I'm sure if we weren't white kids, it would have gone.
Would have been very different. Like poor little Mayor Rice was just playing with a gun in a park.
Yeah.
And the cops pulled up, jumped out of the car, and shot him. And that cop who shot him had been fired in another precinct and had been rehired somewhere else. And so, in terms of accountability and background checks and that kind of thing, that needs to happen.
Yeah, it really does. And I don't have faith that it'll move much beyond. And I don't know how much long the protest will last. I mean, it's
the thing like actual. I mean, this is where I get. This is what worries me is that there's a large outpouring of white people that are showing up, which is amazing, and I think, oh my God, like this is, people are coming together. They can go back home and retreat to their whiteness and turn it off, and I don't want that to happen. I want, like, this is a long, good, it's been a long road, and it's going to continue to be until actual real reform takes place. And so
I think that is exactly what's going to happen.
I don't want that to happen though.
But it's happened to literally every issue. It's happened every time someone's been murdered by the police, and it happened with the Iraq War. Eventually everyone just gave up and let it continue.
They did the war, and they did the war, and
they did the war. No matter how much we marched, they did the war, and then they continued the war, and they expanded the wars. And I hate that, but I have this bitterness inside me that I can't get past, because you said before, you hate when people say protests don't work, and I hear you, but like, I mean, in the 2006, the George Bush protests, they didn't do anything. And so, I mean, I agree with you that they can make incremental changes happen, but I just overall don't think it will make massive changes,
I mean, we've already seen a lot of changes, not even just in the United States or in New York City, like around the world. And
yeah, but have we seen enough that will actually stop people from being killed?
It's only been 2 weeks, Zach. It's only been, it feels like a long time. And the people who have been doing the work before George Floyd got murdered have been laying the groundwork for everyone else to pick up. And you've got to remain hopeful, because that's what they want. They want people to just, it's hot, I want to go home. I'm like, oh, the restaurants are now open, let's go have brunch. Like, no, like this is the moment, and we have to seize it. Otherwise, shame on all of us, and that sustained force. It doesn't necessarily have to be marching through Brooklyn at 10 o'clock at night, it can become more, focusing on, and everyone has their own thing. If it becomes focusing on, community outreach, making sure that people have access to healthy foods in their neighborhood, making sure that children in neighborhoods have access to the arts and education, making sure that, police have accountability, like who watches the cops until these laws can be put into place, who is going up to Albany, making sure that laws get passed and Cuomo signs it. Like all these different things can happen. And it takes our own resolve, and that's, having the pandemic where, we're all literally at home. Like, it'd be a lot different if it's like sports are happening, we have improv shows, all sorts of, oh, but we go out to dinner on Thursday nights. It's like all of that was taken away. And so we couldn't escape the reality of what has been happening to Black people in this country since they were forced to come here.
But when all that stuff comes back, what stops everyone from going back to sleep?
That's each one of us has to look at ourselves and say, like, is this, that this is a moral conviction. This is it is all of it is our imperative to do right. That's what I say.
All right. Okay. I agree with that.
Have you been out at all?
Out? I mean, I went to March last Saturday and then 3 days ago.
Okay.
And that's 3 days ago. That was the last time I was out of the house. Was 3 days ago. But that's it. That's all I've done.
That's good. That's good. You joined in, the voices of the many. You put yourself out there.
I did. I mean, I always stand on the sides.
No, we are still in a pandemic, so that's not.
I wish I could say that's why I stood on the side, but it's more me being crazy about being in crowds. But
crazy about that. No.
But anyways, I think this has been a good talk for this week.
Yes.
And I think we should sign off now because we're towards the end.
Everyone keep fighting the good fight. Yes, and until next time, we have been
left and correct.